Hi, everybody. This is Allison from Alley Cat Creations. How are you? Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet done so. And if you get anything from my work, I'll connect the dot, an epiphany, a mind explosion, a new book to read, a new author to explore. Please consider supporting my work. All the links are below this video. Artwork, hearts, pyramids, skulls, all kinds of fun stuff. alleycatcreations211.com. That's how you can help me out and get an energy exchange beyond knowledge and wisdom and me messing up every other word in a book. Hi. We're going to do Blavatsky today. I was going to do the Law One, but I had a lot of not strange. Well, you don't want to say strange because that's not the right word for it. Last night I am a clear conduit channel. I get channeled constantly, but I had archangels like coming through, like entering into me. It was weird. It's hard to explain. So I'm like still like out of it from all of that like craziness. I tried working out and getting my swollen, my muscles are coming back, my definition is coming back. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how to ground and move my energy to wake myself up. Very bizarre last night, to say the least, but this is what's expected when we are upgrading and expanding consciousness and learning and evolving. So, very draining though. So we're going to start with Blavatsky, the Law of One. I have to do my insights. So what the section I am on is like amazing, but without quoting, it's kind of hard to describe. So I'm figuring that out, and it's taken me a little longer than I would like. So I wanted to get a reading in today. Co-host number 3 is on the beanbag, my meditative beanbag over there. He's freaking cute. Freya is still hiding for most of the day. She comes out to play. I have like the red dot. She loves a red dot. And she comes out to eat. Otherwise, like you can't find her. I know where she hides now, but she's hard to find sometimes. She likes under my bed. So I'm just leaving her be. And yeah, I'm really lost for words right now how happy these guys make me. And I like giving them their space. They're still trying to get used to the house and everything. So yeah. Allergies also. So before I begin, just like any of my videos, I have projection issues. There are words in languages or even in English that just doesn't come out physically of my mouth properly. I have issues with my mouth. So please forgive me. I'm also starting work on the 14th. So I don't know what my reading schedule and video schedule is going to look like. I'm going to try to get a good schedule down pat where, you know, like I'll get home from work and if I'm not dead, it might depends on the day and what goes on. I don't know yet. I'll see if I can get things up in the mid-afternoon. We'll see. Stanza 3. Attempts to create man. The descent of the demiurge. The lunar gods order to create. The higher gods refuse. The Lord of the Lords come. From her body he separated the waters, and that was heaven above, the first heaven. the atmosphere or the air, the firmament. Key word right there. It's a firmament. It's important. It's not, I don't know. In my estimation, it's important. Here, tradition fails again into the universal. As in the earliest version, repeated in the Puranas, so in the latest, the Mosaic account. In the first, it is said, He, the Lord, the God who has the form of Brahma, when the world had become one ocean, concluding that within the waters lay the earth, desirous to rise it up, to separate it, created himself in another form, as in the preceding Kapla Manvarata, he had assumed the shape of a tortoise. So in this one, he took the shape of a boar. In the Elohistic creation, God creates a firmament in the midst of the waters and says, let dry land appear. And now comes the traditional peg whereunto is hung the esoteric portion of Kabbalistic interpretation. The great Kohans, lords, called the lords of the moon of the airy bodies, bringing forth men, they were told, men of your nature. Give them, sorry guys, I can't read italics, Javas or monads, their forms within. She, Mother Earth, or nature, will build coverings without eternal bodies. For male, females will they be, lords of the flame also. Give me a second, guys. I gotta blow my nose. Way better. Who are the lords of the moon? In India, they are called Pitras, or lunar ancestors. But in the Hebrew scrolls, it is Jehovah himself who is the Lord of the moon, collectively as the host, and also as one of the Elohim. The astronomy of the Hebrews and their observance of times was regulated by the moon, a Kabbalist having shown that Daniel told off God's providence by set times, and that the revelation of John speaks of a carefully measured cubical city descending out of the heavens. By the vitalizing power of heaven lay chiefly with the moon. It was the Hebrew Jehovah, and St. Paul enjoins, let no man judge you for your observance of the seventh day and the day of the new moon, which are a shadow of things to come. But the body or substance is of Christ, or Jehovah, that function of this power that made the barren woman a mother, for they are the gift of Jehovah, which is a key to the objection which her husband made to the Shunammite. I'm so butchering that. As to her going to the man of God, for it is neither the seventh day nor the day of the new moon. The living spiritual powers of the constellations had mighty wars marked for the movements and positions of the stars and planets, and especially as a result of the conjunction of the moon, earth, and sun. Bentley comments on the Hindu war between the gods and the giants, as marked by the eclipse of the sun at the ascending node of the moon, 945 BC, at which time was born or produced from the sea Sari, the wife of the Hebrew Abram. Sari is also Venus Aphrodite, the Western emblem of the lunar solar year, or the moon. As Suri is the wife of the moon, Vedi, footnote, the goddess of increase, therefore the grand monument and landmark of the exact period of the lunar year and month by which this cycle of 19 tropical years and 235 revolutions of the moon could be calculated was Mount Sinai, the Lord Jehovah coming down thereon. Paul speaks then as a mystagogue when he says concerning the freed woman and bond woman of Abraham, For the Hagar, the bondwoman, is Mount Sinai in Arabia. How could a woman be a mountain, and such a mountain? Yet she was. Her name was Hagar, Hebrew, whose numbers reread 235, or in exact measure the very number of lunar months to equal 19 tropical years to complete the cycle. Mount Sinai being, in the esoteric language of the wisdom, the monument of the exact time of the lunar years and months by which the spiritual vitalizing cycle could be computed, and which mountain indeed was called the mountain of the moon, Sin. So also Sarai, the wife of Abram, could have no children until her name was changed to Sarah, giving to her the property of the lunar influence. This may be regarded as a digression from the main subject, but it is very necessary one with a view to Christian readers, for who, after studying disappointedly the respective legends of Abram or Abraham, Sarai or Sarah, who was fair to look upon, and those of Brahma and Sarvasti or Sri Lakshmi, Venus, with the relations of all these to the moon and water, and especially one who understands the real Kabbalistic meaning of the name Jehovah and its relation to and connection with the moon, who can doubt that the story of Abram is based upon that of Brahma, or that Genesis was written upon the old lines used by every ancient nation. All in the ancient scriptures is allegorical, all based upon and inseparably connected with astronomy and cosmolatry. They, the moon gods, went, each on his allotted land, 7 of them, each on his lot. The lords of the flame remained behind. They would not go, they would not create. The secret teachings show that the divine progenitors, creating men on 7 portions of the globe, each on his lot, each a different race of men externally and internally, and on different zones. This polygenistic claim is considered elsewhere. But who are they who create, and the lords of the flame who do not? Occultism divides the creators into 12 classes, of which 4 have reached liberation to the end of the great age. The 5th is ready to reach it, but still remains active on the intellectual planes, while 7 are still under direct karmic law. These last act on the man-bearing globes of our chain. Exoteric Hindu books mention 7 classes of Pitras, and among them 2 distinct kinds of progenitors or ancestors. The Barhishad, and I'm going to make a good attempt at this, Angishwata. I'm butchering shit, as we know I do. Or those possessed of the sacred fire and those devoid of it. Hindu ritualism seems to connect them with sacrificial fires, and with Grihasta Brahmins in early incarnations, those who have and those who have not attended as they should to bear their household sacred fires in their previous births. The distinction, as said, is derived from the Vedas. The first and highest class esoterically, the Agashwata, are represented in the exoteric allegory as Grihasta Brahmin householders who, in their past births in other Manvaratas, have failed to maintain their domestic fires and to offer burnt sacrifices, have lost every right to have obligations with fire presented to them, whereas the Varshad, being Brahmins who have kept up their household sacred fires, are thus honored to this day. Thence the Angwashwada are represented as devoid of, and the Barhashad as possessed of fires. But esoteric philosophy explains the original qualifications as being due to the difference between the natures of the 2 classes. The Angishwada Pitras are devoid of fire, of creative passion, because too divine and pure, Veda Supra, Sulka, whereas the Barshad, being the lunar spirits, were more closely connected with earth, became the creative Elohim of form, or the atom of dust. The allegory says that Sananda and other Vedas, the sons of Brahma, his first progeny, were without desire or passion, inspired with the holy wisdom, estranged from the universe and undesirous a progeny. This also is what is meant in Sloka by the words they would not create, and is explained as follows. The primordial emanations from the creative power as to near the absolute cause. They are transitional and latent forces, which will develop only in the next and subsequent removes. This makes it plain. Hence, Brahma is said to have felt wrathful when he saw that those embodied spirits produced from his limbs would not multiply themselves, after which in the allegory he creates another 7 mind-born sons. The latter being often replaced by Daksha, the most prolific of the creators. In most of the texts, these 7 sons, Varishta Daksha, are called the 7 rishis of the 3rd Mamvarata, the later referring both to the 3rd round and also the 3rd root race, and its branch races in the 4th round. These are all the creators of the various beings on the earth, the Parakti, and at the same time, they appear as divers reincarnations in the early Mamvaratas or races. Interesting. It has thus become clear why the Agnashvada, devoid of grosser creative fire, hence unable to create physical man, having no double or astral body to project, since they were without any form, shown in exoteric allegories as yogis, kumaras, who became rebels, asuras, fighting and opposing gods, yet it is they alone who could complete man, make of him a self-conscious, almost a divine being, a god on earth. The Barshad, through possessed of creative fire, were devoid of the higher Mahatmic element. Being on a level with the lower principles, those who perceive gross objective matter, they could only give birth to the outer man, or rather to the model of the physical, the astral man. Thus, through we see them entrusted with the task by Brahma, the collective Mahat, or universal divine mind. The mystery of creation is repeated on earth only in an inverted sense, as in a mirror. It is those who are unable to create the spiritual immortal man who project the senseless model, the astral, of the physical being, and as we will be seen, it was those who would not multiply, who sacrificed themselves to the good and salvation of spiritual humanity. For to complete the sepentary man, to add to his 3 lower principles and cement them with the spiritual monad, which could never dwell in such a form otherwise than in an absolutely latent state, to connecting principles are needed, manas and karma, not karma, kama. This requires a living spiritual fire in the middle principle from the 5th and 3rd states of pleroma. But this fire is the possession of the triangles, not of the perfect cubes, which symbolize the angelic beings. The former, having from the first creation got hold of it and being said to have appropriated it for themselves, as in the allegory of Prometheus. These are the active and therefore in heaven no longer pure beings. They have become the independent and free intelligences shown in every theogony as fighting for that independence and freedom, and hence in the ordinary sense rebellious to the divine passive law. These are then those flames who are shown in Sloka, remain behind instead of going along with the others to create men on earth. but the true esoteric meaning is that most of them were destined to incarnate as the egos of the forthcoming crop of mankind. The human ego is neither Atman nor Buddha, but the higher manas, the intellectual fruition and the efflorescence of the intellectual self-consciousness, egotism, in the higher spiritual sense. The ancient works refer to it as Karana Suraya on the plane of, I'm not attempting that, which is the golden thread on which, like beads, the various personalities of the higher ego are strung. If the reader were told, as in the semi-esoteric allegories, that these beings were returning nirvanis from preceding Manavratras, ages are incalculable, duration which have rolled away in the eternity, a still more incalculable time ago, he would hardly understand the text correctly. While some Vedantins might say this is not so, the Nirvani can never return, which is a true during the Manvarata he belongs to, and erroneous where eternity is concerned, for it is said in the sacred slokas, the thread of radiance, which is imperishable and dissolves only in nirvana, re-emerges from it in its integrity on the day when the great law calls all things back into action. Ooh, that's interesting. Hence, as the higher Petrus or Dianus had no hand in the physical creation, we find primeval man issued from the bodies of his spiritually fireless progenitors, described as air form, devoid of compactness and mindless. He had no middle principle to serve him as a medium between the highest and the lowest, the spiritual man and the physical brain. He had lacked manas. The monads, which incarnated in these empty shells, remained as unconscious as when separated from their previous incomplete forms and vehicles. There is no potentiality for creation or self-consciousness in a pure spirit on this our plane, unless it's too homogeneous perfect, because divine nature is, so to say, mixed with and strengthened by an essence already differentiated. It is only the lower line of the triangle, representing the first triad, the emanates from the universal monad, that can furnish this need consciousness on the plane of differentiated nature. But how could these pure emanations, which on this principle must have originally been themselves unconscious in our sense, be any use in supplying the required principle, as they could hardly have possessed it themselves? The answer is difficult to comprehend unless one is well acquainted with the philosophical metaphysics of a beginningless and endless series of cosmic rebirths, and becomes well impressed and familiarized with the immutable law of nature, which is eternal motion, cyclic and spiral, therefore progressive even in its seeming retrogression. The one divine principle, the nameless, that all of the Vedas is the universal total, which neither in its spiritual aspects and emanations, nor in the physical atoms can ever be at absolute rest, except during the nights of Brahma. Hence also the firstborn are those who are first set in motion at the beginning of a Manvarata, and thus the first to fall into the lower spheres of materiality. They who are called in theology the thrones are the seat of God, must be the first incarnated men on earth. And it becomes comprehensible if we think of the endless series of past Manvaratas to find that the last had to come first and the first last. We find, in short, that the higher angels had broken countless aeons before through the seven circles and thus robbed them of the sacred fire, which means in plain words that they had assimilated during their past incarnations in the lower as well as in the higher worlds all the wisdom therefrom, the reflection of Mahat in its various degrees of intensity. No entity, whether angelic or human, can reach the state of nirvana or of absolute purity except through eons of suffering and the knowledge of evil as well as good, as otherwise the latter remains incomprehensible. Between man and the animal, whose monads or javas are fundamentally identical, there is the impassable abyss of mentality and self-consciousness. What is human mind in its higher aspect? Whence comes it, if it is not a portion of the essence, and in some rare cases of incarnation, the very essence of a higher being, one from a higher and divine plane? Can man, a god in the animal form, be the product of material nature by evolution alone, even as is the animal, which differs from man in external shape, but by no means in the materials of its physical fabric, and is informed by the same through undeveloped monads, seeing that the intellectual potentialities of the two differ as the sun does from the glow worm? And what is it that creates such difference, unless man is an animal plus a living God within the physical shell? Let us pause and ask ourselves seriously the question, regardless of the vagaries of sophisms of both the materialistic and the psychological modern sciences. To some extent, it is admitted that even the esoteric teaching is allegorical. To make the latter comprehensible to the average intelligence requires the use of symbols cast in an intelligible form. Hence, the allegory and semi-mythical narratives in the exoteric and the only semi-metaphysical and objective representations in the esoteric teachings. For the purely and transcendently spiritual conceptions are adapted only to the perceptions of those who see without eyes, hear without ears, and sense without organs, according to the graphic expression of the commentary. The two Puritan idealist is at liberty to spiritualize the tenant, whereas the modern psychologist would simply try to spirit away our fallen, yet still divine human soul in its connection with Buddha. The mystery attached to the highly spiritual ancestors of the divine man within the earthly man is very great. His dual creation is hinted at in the Puranas, though its esoteric meaning can be approached only by collating together the many varying accounts and reading them in their symbolical and allegorical character. So it is in the Bible, both in Genesis and even in the epistles of Paul. For the Creator, who is called in the second chapter of Genesis the Lord God, is in the original the Elohim or gods, the lords, in the plural. And while one of them makes the earthly atom of dust, the other breathed into him the breath of life, and the third makes of him a living soul, all of which readings are implied in the plural number of the Elohim. The first man is of the earth, the second, the last, or rather highest, is from heaven, says Paul in 1 Corinthians. In the Aryan allegory, the rebellious son of Brahma are all represented as holy ascetics and yogis. Reborn in every Kapila, they generally try to impede the work of human procreation. When Daksha, the chief of the creators, brings forth 10,000 sons for the purpose of peopling the world, Narada, a son of Brahma, the great Rishi, and virtually a Kumara, if not so in name, infers with and twice frustrates Daksha's aim by persuading those sons to remain holy ascetics and eschew marriage. For this, Daksha curses Narada to be reborn as a man, as Brahma had cursed him before the refusing to marry and obtain progeny, saying, "Perish in thy present diva or angelic form, and take up thy abode in the womb. Become a man." Notwithstanding several conflicting versions of the same story, it is easy to see that Narada belongs to the class of Brahmas, firstborn, who have all proven rebellious to the law of animal procreation for which they had to incarnate as men. Of all the Vedic rishis, Narada, as already shown, is the most incomprehensible because the most closely connected with the occult doctrines, especially with the secret cycles and koplas. Certain contradictory statements about this sage have much distracted the Orientalists. Thus, he is shown as refusing positively to have progeny, and even as calling his father Brahma a false teacher for advertising him to get married. Nevertheless, he is referred to as one of the Parakti progenitors. In Narada Purana, he describes the laws and the duties of the celibate adepts. And as these occult duties do not happen to be found in the fragment of about 3,000 stanzas in the possession of European museums, the Brahmins are proclaimed liars. The Orientalists forgetting that the Naradiya is credited with containing 25,000 stanzas, and that it is not very likely that much MSS should be found in the hands of the Hindu profane, those who are ready to sell any precious ola for the red pottage. Suffice it to say that Narada is the Diva Rishi of occultism par excellence, and that the occultist who does not ponder, analyze, and study Narada from his 7 esoteric facets will never be able to fathom certain anthropological, chronological, and even cosmic mysteries. He is one of the fires above mentioned and plays a part in the evolution of the Kapla from its inception down to his final stage. He is an actor who appears in each of the successive 8 acts, root races, of the present Maharatic drama in the world allegories, which strike the keynote of esotericism and are now becoming more familiar to the reader. But shall we turn to the ancient scriptures and documents for the collaboration of the fire, sparks, and flames? They are plentiful if one only seeks for them in the right places. In the book of the concealed mystery, they are clearly enunciated, as also in the Ha-Idra Zuta Kwadesha, or the Lesser Holy Assembly. The language is very mystical and veiled, yet very comprehensible. Therein, among the sparks of prior worlds, vibrating flames and sparks from the divine flint, the workmen proceed to create man, male and female, which flames and sparks, angels and their worlds, stars and planets, are said figuratively to become extinct and die, that is to say, remain unmanifested until a certain process of nature is accomplished. To show how thickly veiled from public view are the most important facts of anthropogenesis, 2 passages are now quoted from 2 Kabbalistic books. The first is from the Book of the Concealed Mystery, from a light bearer, one of the 7 sacred planets of insupportable brightness, proceeded a radiating flame, dashing off like a vast and mighty hammer, those sparks which were the prior worlds. And with most subtle ether were these intermingled and bound mutually together, but only when they were conjoined together, even the Great Father and the Great Mother. From Hao himself is A.B. the Father, and from Hao himself a Ruch, the Spirit, who are hidden in the Ancient of Days, and therein the ether concealed. And it was connected with the light bearer, a planet and its angel and regent, which went forth from the light bearer of insupportable brightness, which is hidden in the bosom of Emia, the Great Mother. Now the following extract from the Zohar also deals with the same mystery. The pre-Adamic kings, we have learned in the Sephra de Zit. Totally not getting that out. Nope. That the Tkiha the Altikim, Ancient of Ancients before him, prepared his form, built kings and engraved kings, sketched out of kings, men, the kings of the animals, and they could not exist, till he overthrew them and hid them until after a time. Therefore it is written, and these are the kings which reign in the land of Edom, and they could not exist till Risha Havra, the Whitehead, I don't know if that's a T, Atika and Atikin, ancient of ancients, arranged himself and formed all forms above and below. Before him, he arranged himself, and his form had not been formed all those whom he desired to form, and all worlds have been destroyed. They did not remain in their places because the form of the kings had not been formed as it ought to be, and the holy city had not been prepared. Now, the plain meaning of these two allegorical metaphysical disquisitions is simply this: worlds and men were in turn formed and destroyed under the law of evolution and from pre-existing material until both the planet and their men, in our case, our Earth and its animal and human races, became what they are now in the present cycle. Opposite polar forces and equal, I don't know how to get that out. I'm going to say equalize. It's not that, but that's not, that word that's there, not coming out of my mouth. It's just the way the letters are. Compound of spirit and matter, of the positive and the negative, of the male and the female. Before men could become male and female physically, his prototype, the creating Elohim, had to arrange his form on this sexual plane astrally. That is to say, the atoms and the organic forces descending into the plane of the given differentiation had to be marshaled in order to intend by nature so as to be ever carrying out in an immaculate way, and the law, which the Kabbalah calls the balance, through which everything that exists does so as male and female in its final perfection in this present stage of materiality. Chachma, wisdom, the male Sephiroth had to diffuse itself in and through Bina, intelligent nature or understanding. Therefore, the first race of men, sexless and mindless, had to be overthrown and hidden until after a time. The first race, instead of dying, disappeared in the second race, as certain lower lives and plants do in their progeny. It was a wholesale transformation. The first became the second root race without either begetting it, procreating it, or dying. They passed by together, as it is written. And he died, and another reigned in his stead. Why? Because the holy city had not been prepared. And what is the holy city? The Malquium, the secret place or the shrine on earth, in other words, the human womb, the microcosmic copy and reflection of the heavenly matrix, the female space of primeval chaos in which the male spirit vindicates the germ of the sun and the visible universe, so much so that in the paragraph on the emanation of the male and female principles in the Zohar, it is said that on this earth, the wisdom from the holy ancient does not shine except in male and female. Homa, I'm totally butchering these words, guys. I'm sorry. Wisdom is a father, and Bina, understanding, is a mother. And when they connect one with the other, they bring forth and diffuse and emanate truth. In the saying of Rabbi J. Yiva Saba, the old, he learned this: what is Bina, understanding? But when they connect in one another, the Yad and the Hey, they become impregnated and produce a son, and therefore it is called Bina, understanding. It means Ben Yah, son of Yah. This is the completeness, the whole. Interesting. I had to lower the lights because obviously I'm not going to hold a pencil to there, but I'm losing my place. I don't know what's going on with my eyes. So I thought maybe the light would help. And Odin, co-host 3, is joining us. I got him a bow tie to be proper and handsome. So I know I'm a dork. But I need a bell on one of them. She did not like her collar. I have another one I'm gonna try without a bow on it. um, yeah, but he's handsome ham. This is also the completeness and Phallicism by the rabbis. It is perfect apotheosis, the divine being dragged into the animal, the sublime into the grossness of the terrestrial. Nothing so graphically gross exists, Eastern occultism, nor in the primitive Kabbalah, the the Chaldean Book of Numbers. We have said so in Isis Unveiled. We find it rather unwise on the part of Catholic writers to pour out their vials of wrath in such sentences as these. In a multitude of pagodas, the phallic stone, ever and always assuming, like the Grecian Baltlos, the brutality indecent from the lingam, the Mahadeva, before casting slurs on symbols whose profound metaphysical meaning is too much for the modern champions of the religion of sensualism par excellence, Roman Catholicism is grasped. They are in duty bound to destroy their oldest churches and change the form of the cupolas of their own temples. The Mahdi of Elephantia, the round tower of Bangalore, the minarets of Islam, either round or pointed, are the originals of the Campanile. I'm totally butchering everything here, guys. I do apologize. Column of San Marco at Venice, of the Rochester Cathedral and the modern Duomo of Milan. All of these steeples, turrets, domes, and Christian temples are the reproductions of the primitive idea of lithos, the upright phallus. Nevertheless, and however it may be, the fact that all these Hebrew Elohim, sparks and cherubs, are identical with the divas, rishis, and the fires and flames, the rudras and the 49 agnis of the ancient areas, is sufficiently proven by and in the Kabbalah. And I'm going to leave it there because next time it's stanza 4. Yes, creation of the first races. So this should be interesting. She's even pointing out what I've pointed out with a waspy because I don't do the Jehovah thing, but like the Orion, the Draco, the things that appear in a waspy. That's why I don't mind reading it. It's just what race is that? Like besides Draconian and maybe Anunnaki, both. I think it's more Anunnaki that and the hated. I don't like that word, but the Draco, which were already here. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The concept, we are all one. Them is us is them, and each of us is individuated with genetics and etherical coding, but in essence, we are all one and the same, with the whole smack down, entangled with quarks and gluons and muons and particles, atoms, energy. It's just perspective and polarity that play the key component. And that's what I was reaching in the law of one. That is, it's like, how do I word this properly to convey the message that they were trying to give without getting yelled at? She brings this up. And we read it in a waspy. about Brahma. Two different origin stories, there's a lot of difference in the Brahma in Blavatsky to Awaspi. It's just interesting comparing the stories. And I mean, it's again perspective. It's perceived in the eyes of, and everybody perceives subject matter differently. There's no right or wrong in what I'm saying either, because you might be like, no, Waspy's it. That's it. And that's okay. I don't perceive it that way. Nor do I Urantia or any book on my shelf fully. Right, Odin? I mean, even if we take a look at the Norse, their creation story, their OMG, how freaking cute is this? Their creation story is so close to the Vedas, the Puranas. It is the Eddas and the Sagas. Super identical in so many ways, just different, obviously language and cultural barriers there. But if you strip everything of those natures down, it is very, very, very identical. Now, how can you go from India to Scandinavia, which would compose of Norway, Sweden, I mean, even Ireland and Iceland at some point, like that area going all the way down, they didn't reach India. I'm sure eventually at later stages of the Viking era they did, but like back when this took place potentially, how did that society and this society have the same beginning story and concepts and gods and warriors and giants, Yadamir, and the tree of life, Yggdrasil, and chariots and flying people. And I mean, India had blue gods, but I mean, that's a social memory complex of a different race. And so was Egypt. Egypt was fashioned by Ra. The social memory complex, not the deity entity that everybody claims is Ra. I believe they're two separate entities in terms of differentiating source experience, not as in we're all one. And yes, we are. So this little guy has like a patch of fur that is growing back in because he's a happy guy now. And he's getting all the love. I needed cats. And not having Morgan in my life, I need the spiritual protection. And these two brought it. And if you're a friend of mine on Facebook, on the same side as my office, I have a humongous copper pyramid I bought myself for my birthday last year. And I put it up where I have a whole table of gems and a mini copper pyramid that I have a copper plate under with all my charging gems, like the gems I use to meditate with. And I found Freya in my meditation spot. Meant to be. She's still very shy and skittish, but she is sitting right directly under the pyramid, the capstone. Just bunkers. Bunkers, trying to get as much love and attention as I can get because I'm starting work on the 14th. Like I said, I don't know what my schedule looks like. I don't know how many days I'm working because it was thrown around. I'm only working 4. which would suck because I do need another day, unless they allow me to sub, which I'm hoping that might be the case. But either way, I'm probably going to have to get another job, because if I'm working 4 days a week, unless they're giving me a higher amount of money for that, I got to find something else, because I'm in bad shape. But I do want to thank everybody who has been helping contribute. I am hoping eventually this channel starts, if I can keep up my readings, but maybe incorporate a live once a week. Figure that out. I have to see again, I waited until I was starting to work to get a schedule going, and see what I'm capable of doing. I will definitely try to get lives going on YouTube and see if I can get myself monetized to have another stream of income. It might not be that much, but it's something. And of course, I'm still going to continue doing my artwork, because that's what I do. Other people make a fortune doing what I'm doing. I'm happy for them. I don't know what my mission, and I just know this is something that I know helps other people. So I'm going to continue doing it no matter how small or how big my audience is. I just, life happens. And unfortunately, when you don't have another person contributing to your bills, splitting in, halfway, making a little things easier, it gets hard doing it all yourself. So I'm at that spot, unfortunately. So sending each and every one of you love like a passion, grace, shielding and protective energy. Please go within, do the work on thyself, because only you are going to know what you perceive is real or not, or what aligns with your heart ray, meaning the ray from source down into your heart center, what aligns with you. Not everybody aligns in the same ray of vibratory states and frequency. Be the physical shoulder for somebody, because some people need a hug and some people just need to be listened to. Be the lighthouse. See your truths. And I hope all of you have a blessed and beautiful start to your weekend. Thank you all for helping me. Thank you for watching and liking and subscribing to my channel. It means the world to me. And if it wasn't for some of our amazing viewers, I wouldn't have Freya or Odin. I got helped because the fees were expensive. So I got two beautiful kitties that make me happy, that are bringing me back to my best in energy wise. And I definitely thank everybody. So until the next one, guys, have a great evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.